Tom Clark's Main Event is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show.
Come on, won't you say it loud? Ayo, we gon' turn this out. Tom Clark's Main Event. Drop kick now and powerbomb. Ayo, bro, let's bring this on. Hey, hey, what is up? Oh, captain, my captain, show the stuff. Power slammer, suplex 2. Hot garbage is just for you. Beat breaker, cut a cold red. Figure 4, hot times ahead. Since 2014 it's on. It's a 10 count, but stand up strong. Hey kid, no DQ. Strong style, chop, this is how it do. Tom Clark's Main Event. Tom Clark's Main Event. Tom Clark's Main Event. Tom Clark's Main Event.
Hey, what's up, kids? Welcome back to the program. Tom Clark here with you on a Friday. It is July 5th. This is episode number 338, and we are live on the Facebook. If you will, smash the like button as we get started here today. Share the show wherever you can. It's much appreciated. You know how we roll. We always ask the same questions all the time. We always ask the same things of you. But we give you so much, right? We ask this much, we give you this much, right? An hour or so worth of entertainment. I say so because sometimes it's longer. You see I'm digitizing just a bit. You can't see it, but I got the green screen behind me. I have moments of digitization. Is that a word? It is now. It is now, I tell you. It's my show. Whatever words I say goes. Look at that crap. Yeah, so anyway, smash the like button here for me, kids. I continue to be obsessed with my appearance and my lighting. If I wasn't, you folks would be wondering what's happened to me. Wouldn't you? Yeah, you would. Don't lie. Is that any better? A little bit? So how's your week been? How's your holiday been? Did you have burgers and dogs yesterday? Because I did. And they were good. You know why? Because I'm a good cook. What? I am. I'm a very good cooker. You don't doubt me. I make a mean burger. I can't do much on this planet, but I make a mean burger and I can make a fairly entertaining podcast. I've been accused before of making a fairly entertaining podcast. So there may not be anybody here today. Everybody may be on vacation, out spending money they don't have, out of town, celebrating the 4th because they got the weekend and or the week/week, whatever, off. If you did, good on you. Enjoy your time. If you're watching us remotely, thank you very much. If you're out and about, I appreciate it. Do you know what? Your thumb still works. Smash the like button, kids. I appreciate it. Let's say a couple of hellos before we bring our guest on. Robbie's in the house. I appreciate you. Man, I'm telling you, there's not a lot of people here today. If you're watching, you're not very vocal, please make some noise. It'd be much appreciated. Again, July 5th, maybe not the best time to go live, but I've made a commitment because I took like 6 months off. It's a true statement, man. So I'm making a commitment to not do that stuff anymore. Whenever I can help it. And even if I can't go live on a Friday or Saturday, I'll be live back here at some point, which is what I'm doing today. And again, we got stuff to talk about. We're going to be reviewing AEW today, Forbidden Door. Let's go ahead and get our guest on. And as you know, I got to switch things up. Boom, there it goes. You don't know what I just did, but now we're ready. So let's get the man on here. Christopher Ray Patton back. What's up, Chris? How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. How have you been, man?
I'm doing okay, man. Just frying like an egg outside. So, my God. I don't know if you're a Danger Mouse fan. Remember that old cartoon Danger Mouse? Were you ever into that? You know,
vaguely. Yeah. I used to get those in like when you'd go to the library back in the day to rent movies. They used to get those like in series, like Danger Mouse, Mighty Mouse, Wacky Races. Was that another one of those?
That's Hanna-Barbera, right?
Yeah.
The Danger Mouse was a British cartoon, Thames production company, I believe, or Tim's production company. That's it. And anyway, I'm a big fan of that show. But there's a joke. For those of you kids that don't know it, the mouse is a secret agent, super spy. It's a little white mouse. And he's got a hamster assistant named Penfold. Classic. And he says something about the temperature. He says it's hot enough to fry an egg on a car's bonnet, meaning the hood of the car. And Penfold has to say, "Thank you, sir, but I'm not hungry." Stupid jokes that pop into my head for no good freaking reason. So as we're coming into today's show, man, right off the bat, high level feedback from you, 10,000 foot view. What did you think about Forbidden Door as a whole?
I thought it was a fun pay-per-view. I mean, I wasn't upset that I spent money on it, so that's good. It was long, but that's how all of these AEW pay-per-views are. There were some really high-level, great matches on it, and then there was some stuff that was kind of just there for me. But it was a fun show.
I think it was a fun show too, and I'm already. I don't know if we'll have the same viewpoints, but there was some things that I could have. I'll put it to you this way: on a card this size and on angles that happen here and that, also we can discuss a little bit of Fallout on Dynamite as well. You can kind of see where this company's weaknesses are in terms of storytelling. And for me, they became very clear in how some of these matches were paced. And again, how the fallout happened on Dynamite. The pre-show was big. I mean, there was, let's see, out of 15 total matches, 2, 3, 4, 5 were on pre-show. Big. I mean, here's the thing, Chris, they always deliver. Do you know what I mean? If you're a wrestling fan, you're going to take something out of a 15-match card. And chances are it could be better than half the card you enjoy, if for no other reason than the wrestling itself. I mean, we talked last week about the balance between a pro wrestling card and straight up entertainment. How far do you think they are from that? And again, like you said last week, it's all subjective, right? But like, how do you feel this card measured up in terms of balance?
Man, that's a tough question. I'm pulling the card back up right now because there just was so many matches. I like having, like you said, 5 matches on the pre-show, because you are, at the end of the day, this is a traditional pay-per-view. So you are trying to entice people to spend the $50-$60 it's going to cost to watch the thing. This one, I think it's hard to clarify like what kind of what you would see as more of an entertainment show, just because a lot of the matches are kind of dream matches, or that's what they're being booked at, or booked as. There was some stuff there, but it's usually the kind of stuff that I don't necessarily care. Like the ladder match, I think, was what we kind of thought it would be, where it's more of like your very, very much a high spot match. But then you had like your great storytelling match, like with Swerve versus Will Ospreay for extent. So thinking about like entertainment versus a pro wrestling, let's say 70s, 80s type show, this felt more like just a full on, here's a bunch of matches wrestling show. But like you said, there was some things that they tried to tie into moving the storyline further, which, like I said, it's kind of hard to do on this pay-per-view in a lot of ways. So in some ways they got there. For me, I'm going to be very picky. I don't want it to be like a SmackDown where there's 40 minutes of good storytelling and then a bunch of like 3 to 5 minute matches that don't mean anything. But at the same time, I do want the matches to mean something. I don't know if that answered your question or just danced around it a lot.
No, I get it. I mean, this compare and contrast that fans are obsessed with between this and the other company, I'm okay with it to some extent, especially because who's been doing it longer? Well, they've been telling stories much longer, of course, than AEW has. So for instances like this, in other ways of comparison, you know how that story goes. A lot of it to me is just white noise, but things like of that nature, using them as a model, like the Bloodline thing, how many promos they've cut on the air, people are absolutely enamored with it, but that's their audience, right? They've educated their audience to expect these lengthy promos, I'll use the word storytelling, the looks and the gestures and the double takes and the innuendo. Their audience is fully prepared for that. The AEW audience, Chris, there's moments, depending on what storyline, when it kind of feels like the crowd's going, can we wrap this up? When's the next match? So it's kind of like, it's the old adage of, what does your crowd want? Well, you're going to tell them what they want to a certain degree. You're going to prep them and how you do business. But then if they want it bad enough, they make enough noise.
Well, the bloodline didn't start out that way, right? They took their biggest star, put him with Paul Heyman and highly focused storylines around that, which helped everyone else get over, which is kind of what you should always be attempting to do, right? Whoever the top guy is should be making everyone he works with. And people can say what they want, like Roman beat everybody. Yeah, he did, but he was like the biggest thing on the show that carried pretty much every pay-per-view. And that's kind of what you want. And that's a little bit of where you're getting. That's more of my criticism, specifically around their world title, was Swerve Strickland, right? This is the first big win he's had. Spoiler alert for people out there that didn't watch the pay-per-view. But that's kind of what I've been saying all along, is who is the guy? Is it Will Ospreay? Is it going to be Swerve? Is it MJF coming back? That's where you get into these long segments or long promo segments. Like, the only person they've really had that kind of carried that was Cody Rhodes for AEW, like, who was able to do that. And there's not anyone there that can. Believe there are, but you gotta pick whoever you want to strap the rocket to, and then try to build the stories around them, the stories that make sense, and maybe not just throw matches together because they look good on paper.
I think for me, I don't want to confuse the two programs too much, but for me, a lot of the stuff I saw on Dynamite, really, not red flags is the wrong word, but for me, it's like, okay, I see the deficiencies in, like, I get, like, the Jeff Jarrett thing, for example. Like, I get what they were going for, and the Hangman Page stuff happens on Dynamite, and they dropped that video of Jarrett 12 days ago as this sympathetic, Owen was my brother. Wonderful. But how about a month ago? How about 28 days ago? And then every week they drop something else. But in 12 days, we're supposed to no longer hate Jeff Jarrett, love the man because wrestling is also real life and me and Owen were brothers, and feel bad enough. And then Hangman Page screws him out, pins him, all right? And now Jarrett has nothing, and we're supposed to feel terrible. Great. But in 12 days, Chris, and they're not on the air in 12 days consecutively. So that, to me, is an example of a deficiency of something that could have went over gangbusters, but we had 12 days to stew on that one promo, and then boom, that's what they did on Dynamite. You have any thoughts on that, by the way?
I mean, it's Jeff Jarrett. I think he's just going to be that's going to be a hard story to get over anyways, just because it is heel. I mean, it's been Jeff Jarrett as the most evil person in all of wrestling for the past 20 years to some extent, especially because a lot of these fan bases overlap as old, whether they want to admit it or not. We're the alternative watchers, the TNA watchers who probably watched a lot of the Jeff Jarrett era. So there is something to be said of some guys are just always good at, if Harley Race had a return babyface run, I just don't know that storyline works. You know what I mean? To begin with. And you said, when you just randomly sprinkle it in and you have Hangman coming back, who really was one of the top contenders for the title, and Jeff Jarrett, who I don't think I've seen win a singles match this year. The expectation would be he's going to lose, right?
Yeah, that's a great point, is that we had no reason to believe he was going to go that far. And you think, well, maybe they give it to him as a feel-good win. Yeah, but we don't care about him. That doesn't mean as a person, we don't care about him as a threat, because he's not being portrayed as a threat, as a face at all. It's odd to me. And it's almost like, Chris, was it cheap to go the route of Owen and I, not on Jeff's part? Was it cheap to go the route of me and Owen are brothers and I miss my friend? What did you really accomplish? Do you know what I mean? There was no real payoff there at all. It was just, let's have the heel Jeff Jarrett lose again. Well, to your point, he loses all the time.
I mean, with the exception of Sting, they do this with most of the older vets they bring in, maybe with the exception of Sting and Samoa Joe, right? What's Jay Lethal doing?
Nothing.
Mark Briscoe. Right, he's cutting promos, but he's still losing matches.
He's
the comparison of Jeff Jarrett is to me, the comparison to Jeff Jarrett, a direct one, would be Dustin Rhodes. They always give him this like big, happy, this is my story. And then he loses anyways. So you've conditioned your audience to go ahead and know like Hangman just came back. He's beating this dude, right?
Yeah. That's fair. That's a great example. I won't put Mark in this category because the RH World Champion, he fires up the crowd. They really love him. They love Dustin too, but the comparison to Dustin, I believe, is more spot on. But I totally get where you're coming from. I mean, I don't know. I'd hate to say the whole ride off in the sunset business because that's been such an overused thing. Whenever Dustin's time does come, please let this man go out on top. Like, it doesn't have to be a belt. But like you said, they've teased the same thing with him several matches in a row, and he never wins the match. It is crazy.
I mean, I hear the argument with Mark Briscoe from your side as well, but how many people who watch their product also subscribe to the Ring of Honor show and watch that on a weekly basis?
That's fair. And he's not on it every week either because the champ's never on every week. It's such an odd situation.
It's also a title that is where does that fall in line in the lineage of titles they have on that show? That show?
It's the oldest championship they have.
But it's the one that, like, to some extent gets the least amount of exposure.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. Somebody said that, hello, Maria. Maria says they did a good job wanting me to see Double J win. I believe it did. I believe that did happen with quite a few folks because, especially older fans that can see through the heel babyface thing who maybe grew up with Jarrett or enjoyed his work before even as a heel. I can totally understand that. Jeffrey says, why build up Jeff just to destroy him well, that's what we're talking about. I don't know. I mean, Chris, I wouldn't be surprised if the fallout from this is a Jarrett promo where he's talking about, I don't know how many big matches I have left. I put everything I had into this and I was beat by, you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know where they're going to fall in this. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, it is the follow-up. They're going to do like a bunkhouse brawl between him and Hangman after this tournament or something. If they're going to keep the storyline going and continue to make us care about Jeff Jarrett, then I'm not willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And Jeffrey, to your comment here, where does the title fall in the pecking order? That's basically what I was getting at, because they have so many titles. Does the Ring of Honor world title, is that like, where does that actually fall as in importance? But there's interesting stuff they could do with that, but you're assuming that Heyman's going right back after Swerve. I mean, his entire storyline was that Swerve was never to win that title before leaving on the 2 to 3 month hiatus or whatever. So unfortunately, I think Jeff Jarrett will be back being normal Jeff Jarrett. It's Jeff Jarrett making you care about something in a video or a promo. Like, he made me care about that Ric Flair retirement match that I had no want to watch, but the videos they did leading up to it. I mean, he's a good promo. And I do believe, him and playing off him and Owen being friends. The problem is it's like the Dustin Rhodes thing where, yeah, he's a great promo. He made me want to see this, but when you get the carpet pulled out from the fans, like from out under your feet every time, it's kind of okay, well, I don't know that I necessarily wanted to see him lose if that was the buildup.
Like, I'm not falling for this again kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry we spent so much time on it because we got a whole card to get to, but like, I don't know. That's something kind of just sitting with me. And look, let's be honest. Jeff is a complete professional. He's one of those veterans who can come into any locker room in this country on any card on any given night and say, what do you need me to do? Well, I need you to run heel. All right. Who am I working? All right. I'll cut you a promo. Or if I need to run face, I'll have the crowd chant my name before the show's over. Like, because he's, like you said, he's just that good. I would love to see, by the way, him and Paige have a feud. Don't think it's going to happen. But I think that would make a great feud. I mean, blood and guts, not literally blood and guts feud. But, but there again, Chris, to your point, can you imagine Paige dropping a pin to Jarrett?
Yeah. I mean, that's the problem, I guess, more than anything else. If you wanted to do something fun with him in what I consider right now one of AEW's weakest tag division runs, is put him and Dustin together. Let's put the two the two we feel bad for them together. Have them run like a Southern Boys tag team.
That's not a bad little tag team. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'd be okay with that.
No.
I'd be okay with
very good. I mean, it'd be a very late 80s WCW tag team, but there ain't nothing wrong with that.
Cowboy hats, cowbells, the dusters. I'm just saying, yeah. Wild-eyed Southern boys. So, well, kids, I'm sure you didn't just tune in today to hear us talk about what happened on Dynamite. So let's talk about the Forbidden Door. I'm gonna run down the pre-show, then we get to the real card, the main card. I'm saying Kyle Fletcher defeated Serpentico. Kings of the Black Throne, best name ever, defeated Ishii, Kyle Riley, Roderick Strong, and Gabe Kidd. Love Gabe Kidd, by the way. And Private Party. And in a four-way tag team match, Willow Nightingale and Tom Nakano defeated Statlander and Momo Watanabe. Mariah May defeated Saraya. The Lucha Bros defeated LIJ, excuse me. And then that's your pre-card. Anything on that little pre-show, Chris, that you enjoyed, that you didn't care for? What was your favorite? That kind of thing.
I like the Willow tag match. I thought that was pretty cool. A lot of multi-men matches, right? The LIJ match was not as entertaining as I thought it could potentially have been. I was a little disappointed by that. I did not catch some of the matches on this pre-show, so I don't want to comment on all of them. But those two in particular, I expected the your Lucha Brothers versus LIJ match to be like one of the highlights of the night. I think I even said that on the prediction show, and that did not come to fruition.
I enjoyed the match. I again, like you, I don't know if I would say it was the best of the pre-show. I continue to be a big fan of Malachi Black and Brody King. They are lights out. I just love that faction, and I thought the stuff between Brody and Ishii was great. I actually maybe enjoyed that match a little better than the Lucha Bros with Mystico and against LIJ, honestly.
That faction falls into the same category as how many times are you going to let people get behind them to have them lose?
That's fair. Yeah. What do you
that
think
goes back to my commentary last pay-per-view where they lost to Edge. I'm like, and now Edge is gone. So what is that?
And, we talked about that injury here. Far be it for me to question a guy who is a first ballot Hall of Famer. But, like, of all the ways you could have landed, man, it seems like the worst way to land off the top of that cage is flat-footed.
So. Yeah, it's just I mean, I like when they have everything going with Malachi Black's group. Looks like something that could be big, but it's a start-stop kind of thing until they find the next baby face they want to foil their plans.
Jeffrey talking about having the carpet pulled out from underneath of them. AEW has to be careful and do. I agree, and honestly, I do not believe in year one that's a fair criticism. In year 5, I think it's a fair criticism, Chris, that it's there's got to be some. I'm a comic book guy, right? So continuity is my word I'm looking for, like some cohesion, something that's, this happened today because 6 months ago this happened. Like, I don't know, man. And again, I not to go back to the Jarrett stuff too much, but again, you gave me 12 days to care about a heel that you really wanted me to hate. Like, that's a tall order, man. That's a tall order for me to really care. Like, I don't know. I'm not trying to be too down on the company or anything, but it's things that I'm picking up along the way. So, what did you think about the Mariah May and Saraya match, by the way? Or did you see that one?
I don't think I saw that one.
Okay.
So I think that is one of the ones I missed. If you want to tell me about it, I'm here to listen.
I thought it was good. There was nothing that was surprising in it. They're both really good in the ring. And if I say it was a serviceable match, it sounds like an insult, and I don't mean it to be an insult. I thought it was fine. What was it supposed to have been on the undercard? I don't know. I thought it was good. Put it that way. I didn't really. There's one women's match I had an issue with, and that wasn't it. So
who ended up getting the win in the match?
Mariah May did.
Okay, so I mean, from that standpoint, it was probably fine.
Yeah.
And when you say serviceable, I think it's That's a positive thing to say about a Saraya match, knowing her limitations due to injury, right?
Yeah.
If you go back and watch a lot of her matches, there's just, I mean, that's nothing against her. I mean, that like well documented has had like to the point where we didn't think she would ever wrestle again at all. So even for her to come over in a part-time spot and put over someone like Mariah May, which is going to be their big female storyline going forward, with this Tony Storm and inevitable breakup, I think well used there, right?
You know, I was just going to ask, do you see a difference in the way she works now versus before the injuries in WWE? Can you see a difference?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like even hitting the rope, she's hitting them a lot slower, right? Like,
yeah, that's fair.
Not doing as much, but to be fair to Paige when she was in WWE, and you go back to the matches she had with AJ Lee, they had to do a lot to kind of separate themselves from what people knew of Divas division prior. So
yeah, that's fair. So the main card, kids, kicking off, MJF defeated Hechicero. You know, he's a hometown boy. This match was 9 minutes and 50 seconds. So it was, you know, good amount of time for what they wanted to do. Hechicero, Chris, is impressive. You know, the stuff this guy can do. First of all, to call yourself a Luchador Mexico, you better be able to do something. And he can. And like, I like his gimmick. I like his entrance. I like everything about him. So what did you think about this one? And in combo with that, what did you think about his heel turn on Wednesday?
I mean, this was a fun match. I mean, it was nothing. It was like a Dynamite match. People always say these about WWE's pay-per-views, right? Like, oh, it felt like a TV match. Felt like a TV match. That's what I would say. As far as the heel turn goes, yeah, that's interesting. So excited to see where they go with that. Like I said, the big thing for me when they set up is MJF's entire.
You may be freezing on us a bit there, Chris. We may lose you here in a second. Could be, it may be on your end. I'm not sure. Hopefully we'll get Chris back in just a sec. He has completely froze on us, folks. Yeah, I look, as far as the heel turn goes for me, folks, you know, for my money, we all knew MJF was going to turn heel eventually. We knew it was only a matter of time. We knew it wasn't going to last forever, right? But, you know, at the same time, how's the timing work out for you? Does it make sense to have happened the way it happened? And, you know, this thing with Danny Garcia, look, I'm not trying to come off too negative today, like, or nothing crazy. But, you know, here's what I'll say. You know, Renee made a comment, something effect backstage of that Danny Garcia was quickly becoming the backbone of the company. I don't know what you're talking about right now. Again, you gave me 2 weeks to make me believe that Danny Garcia is a big deal. Okay. And not that he's ever been portrayed in a negative light or anything, because he hasn't. And if I'm off base, you guys feel free to tell me. But the backbone of the company, I don't know what we're talking about here. So, you know, they're trying to make him sound, you know, to pump him up. And, you know, that way when MJF turns on him, we're supposed to feel it a lot more. Again, I'm okay with that if you give it to me every week. And if you don't give it to me every week, I don't really know what we're doing here. All right. I think we got Chris back. There he is.
Yeah, sorry about that. The power flickered here for a second and
no problem.
Dropped my internet. We got some storms rolling through, so hopefully it'll stay good.
Hopefully they're not on the way here, so you can have them. Of course, we could use some rain. I'll put it to you that way.
So apologies. What I was saying is there was the gimmick of being the AEW is the most important thing, and I want to be this champion, and I don't care about the rest of the world. If they want to fight me, then they need to come on my show and do it. He kind of has had promos against Forbidden Door, so for this to be the opponent, you know, I would hope it would have been something like a New Japan title or an IWGP heavyweight title kind of big build up match.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of what we talked about, New Japan itself has kind of they're kind of struggling to find that next big guy. And I think that's why we see later the belt gets put back on Naito.
Mm-hmm. Good old Reliable. Yeah. As long as his knees hold up, he'll be fine. So I was saying last few minutes or so, Chris, that, as far as the heel turn for MJF, it had to happen sooner or later. I don't know if Wednesday was the best time, but you're going to do it, I guess. Plus the show after the big event, you want something big to happen. So I kind of understand that. What I bumped into on this, Chris, for me, is when I heard Renee call Danny Garcia, said he's quickly becoming the backbone of AEW. And I thought, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, that makes no sense to me whatsoever. Like, again, not that he's ever been promoted in a negative light, but you want me to suddenly embrace this kid as being the next big thing when you don't like you say, you don't let him win anything. He's still got sorry to rant. He's still got the crap music. I hate the dance. I don't get any of that. I like him in the ring. Him as a talent is fine. But the package for me personally is not there. Like, and again, Chris, it's almost like we need to make people feel this because tonight MJF's going to turn on him. I don't know, dude. I don't know. Again, had you done this for a couple of months, okay, but you did this for what? How long for Garcia? 3 weeks? They've been talking about him in this light. It's been no time at all, man.
Is he the backbone just because he puts on consistently good matches and is easy to work with? Is it like a backstage he's a backbone kind of like, is he like a Dean Malenko? Is that what she was alluding to? Or is because as the actual backbone, wouldn't you look more to someone like Orange Cassidy as the back as far as week in, week out pay-per-view? That guy needs a vacation.
Yeah.
If you're going off that, I don't understand that either. And like you said, the bad gimmick, it almost has like the Alex Wright thing to it, where it's like, oh, I like this guy's matches, but man, this Euro techno dance guy.
Yeah.
Not to the same extreme, but maybe this is the way they're trying to break him out of it. MJF heel turn is like, he was never really a babyface.
No, not really. Yeah, that's fair. And Chris, their definitions of heel and face they just fly directly in the face of traditional pro wrestling standards. They really truly do. And it's, instead of celebrating with the Bucks backstage, Paige wants nothing to do with them and he shoved them to the floor. And I'm like, it was a reminder of, you're not watching the other company. They do things differently here. For them, heel is not heel, face is not really face, because there's so many blurred lines. I guess to them, Chris, it makes sense, but I'm telling you, in my opinion, long term, to maintain an audience, you cannot, in my opinion, keep doing this waffling back and forth thing. People need a hero and they need a villain. Do you know what I mean? It makes me nuts.
Yeah, it bothers me as well, because I think at the end of the day, you want the babyface to have whether it's shades of gray or not, you need to build up overcoming obstacles, right? That's the key, because that's what people want to see is someone they like overcome obstacles. And if you don't really like anyone, you just think they're cool, and the obstacles is they just need to have a 30-minute match, then that's not really. I don't know. The same could be said about a lot of the people that they've booked into that situation. They've never had, like I said, with the exception of like Cody Rhodes, a top babyface, and even that one they managed to squander towards the end, where people were really wanting him to hit a pedigree and turn heel. Like, I guess Darby, right? As far as like someone who has really had like a good babyface run.
Mm. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's odd. There again, I'm not in a bad mood today, kids. Maybe I'm more critical than I typically am. I don't know what you call it, but
with MJF, it's like I said, like his babyface run was he had a friend. He had one friend. That was he still cheated in every match. Like he still was not a very good guy.
Yeah. And he was nicer to the crowd than usual.
Kinda sarcastically.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird.
you know, to point to what you're saying on the opposite company that has kind of turned the ship around a little bit, they have done that by having a clear defined huge heel faction that all the baby faces are trying to overcome obstacle wise. And then their shades of gray are the little interactions between these baby faces, like the Randy Orton, Kevin Owens friendship. It's all the underneath stuff that you would expect. Like that's the way you could splinter up those things in various shades of gray. But yeah, that's just an example. And I wouldn't say that storytelling across the board is good, but when you start talking about your top guys like an MJF, you should be like you said, this should have been a bigger to do. Whereas when he came back wearing the whole Triple H gear, you kind of and killing Adam Cole, you kind of assumed that he was back as a baddie, or at least I did.
Right. Robbie, your point about comparing Austin to Daniel, I'll respectfully disagree with you. The idea that Austin Theory is not on the other wrestlers' level, I disagree with that. I think Austin's very good. I think Austin's character work is much better than Daniel's. But I will also remind everyone here that other company has script writers who hand you promos to read on TV, unless you're certain guys. So Austin Theory has been worked with and polished and produced. Daniel has not. So, and in terms of wrestling ability, Daniel can flat out work, Chris. I don't think that's an issue at all with this kid. I just think that, you know, and not to say it's WWE's answer, but if he had someone to maybe help portray him in the right light, it would be fine. But again, when I see him, I don't mean to bag on this guy, dude. I just don't believe what he says. I don't feel it and I don't believe it. When he tells me he wants something, I'm like, I don't care. I don't feel it. It's me talking. Maybe everyone else loves his intensity. Maybe they think he's intense. To me, there's just something missing. Again, for me, there's something not right.
I mean, with Austin Theory, I would go back and look at his like Black Label Pro and the stuff he was doing when he was working with Gabe Sapolsky, because he is a Gabe Sapolsky guy. The other one of those being Darby Allin. There's a lot of potential there, but they built it on that weird Vince McMahon storyline with the golden egg, and then kind of overexposed us with giving him big wins about like against Cena, and then not having any follow up, and then kind of throwing him together in a tag team where he's at, right? It's kind of a different thing. I could see, like, if you're talking about his current gimmick and status in the company, I mean, you could draw comparisons, but Daniel Garcia is also a guy that has kind of been buried around like inserted into other groups. So if that's the comparison until now, but this, you know, he didn't have the big I beat John Cena moment that Austin Theory had. So yeah, I don't know. I like Austin Theory. I think he's very good in the ring. I don't necessarily know that he's good at doing the WWE style of wrestling, which is a whole nother can of worms, right?
I do believe that Theory's farther along than Garcia because of, you know, being around certain people. I believe he's farther along. But, you know, again, Chris, as we've always said, a lot of this is subjective. Garcia's got his fans who are ride and die, and they want this guy to win. I totally get it. And again, not trying to bag on the dude every time I'm on the air. It's just, you know, they this idea again, dude, let's push this kid. We need to make sure the crowd feels terrible when MJF turns on him. We would have anyway. We didn't need this extra reinforcement of, we think maybe this kid's the future. No, you don't. Hopefully you do, but I'll believe it when I see it. Because, you know, again, the stop and start and the, you know,
if he's the future, have him beat someone that matters.
Thank you.
That's like I said, at least with Austin Theory, he beat John Cena. Like, you know, that's if you're supposed to care about him, you can't just have him win like mid-card matches. And there was like a full almost 6 months there where he was only wrestling Wheeler Yuta.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really want people to care about him, have him beat MJF clean. There you go.
Ooh. And you know what? Hey, we just started, Chris. That could happen. We just started this. I mean, one roll up win against MJF is not going to kill MJF in the slightest. and it will help Garcia immensely, I think.
Especially if he outsmarts him, right? You go like
Yep.
a Eddie Guerrero, he outsmarts this villainous MJF type win. You can do that.
I'm here for that. Let's see. We have the Elite and Okada defeating the Acclaimed and Tanahashi in a trios match. Chris, they're wanting to do blood and guts here. Is this the group that you would have? I mean, obviously, we knew the Elite was probably going to be heading to blood and guts. Is the Acclaim the right group to put in this mix? Is it fine? Does it depend on who these guys get as partners? What do you think about this one?
I mean, I've been saying it for a while. It should be Kenny Omega and like Motor City Machine Guns, or a combination of Kenny Omega and Hangman if they're both ready. But I don't think Kenny is ready. So the Acclaimed being here, the other problem is the Acclaimed have a third member.
They do,
So,
yeah.
Why? I'm assuming that it would just be the Elite versus the Acclaimed with Billy Gunn for a blood and guts match. I don't know that Hiroshi Tanahashi is going to make the flight for that.
No.
Right, to get hit in the head with stuff. I don't. I could be wrong. I don't know. Maybe Ace is really bored trying to book New Japan shows and just wants to get hit in the head. But yeah, I don't know. I would say Motor City Machine Guns, man, plus some. I guess that would be the route I would go. Also, where's the Motor City Machine Guns? Where are they at?
Again, where are they? I have no clue. We need to send a search party out after the guns because I can't find them either.
Like, what was the point of taking them off TNA TV if I was just never going to see them again?
Yeah. And, we're going to have the Gun Club, Bullet Club Gold, Billy Gunn, Motor City Machine Guns, a lot of weapons here. I'm saying there's a lot of weapons in this company. It's freaking crazy. So,
I mean, the boring answer is it's going to be like some combination of Blackpool Combat Club, right? Since they've already teased the issues with Bryan Danielson and the Elite, that's, if not one of their plans, a fallback plan.
Yeah, it might be an odd pairing, but I think it would work. I just, it's starting to, I don't know how I feel. And I'm only saying this because, again, wow, I'm repeating myself. I apologize for that. But Chris, in my head, it feels like they just started trying to heat the Acclaim back up. And now they're going to do blood and guts. And I'm thinking, all right, but they weren't exactly red hot 2 months ago. Like, I don't know. Again, maybe I'm just being too negative today. Maybe
no.
That's
I think it's a fair question because they did the first trios match a month back, and Darby. Do we need these trios matches? I guess is the real question, right? Like if you want to make the Acclaimed a great tag team, just have them be a tag team. Like because trios matches don't help anyone. No one ever gets over in these things.
Yeah, and they never really go anywhere either, right? I will say that I really enjoyed Caster's rap on this one. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was very good. I mean, Okada's an easy target, but it's okay because that's the gimmick, is that people are just gonna yell at him and stuff. I thought it was good. So
I mean, Tony Khan should be, in theory, trying to put together a monster tag team from the Young Bucks past to take them out after what happened to him, right? Like or are we just forgetting that was the storyline?
Good question. Again, where are the Motor City Machine Guns? Maria says, I want the old Okada back. He's been turned into a comedy act. I respectfully disagree with that. We'll get old Okada, but I think it's going to take some time. And look, he's still over. He can do anything. They're going to cheer. They madly respect this guy. So they know it's a funny haha, and they're okay with it. Somebody earlier, it may have been Maria. Yeah, Tony tries to get indie gimmicks over with the mainstream audience. It's never going to work. I disagree. Orange Cassidy. It can work. It does work. It doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means that, it's one thing to throw a gimmick out on TV and say, hey, we want you to love this. But again, like, is Orange further along today than he was 6 months ago? I don't know. I guess it's your opinion. Where was he 6 months ago? You know, I mean, I don't know. To me, I would look at that also, but I disagree that he can't get people over. I disagree with that. Yeah. So
I mean, what are we talking about? Like indie like a Joey Ryan type gimmick, or like
I'm not going to speak for her, but
I wouldn't even speak like a Daniel Garcia dancing is not really. Not what I would consider an indie gimmick. An indie gimmick would be like the guy doing the Michael Jackson impersonation wrestling. Like that's what I would expect. There's bad gimmicks. Is that what we're? I mean, because like the Daniel Garcia thing is just. I wouldn't even really call it a gimmick. It's just a dance that he does that's not as good as Swerve's manager's dance.
Have you seen the pizza guy, by the way?
Yes, that would be what I'd consider an indie gimmick, something like that. Or the dude that's out here dressed like the main character of Resident Evil 4, cosplaying and wrestling.
There was a guy in England doing a blue cane. Have you seen Blue Cane?
Yes, he wrestled the WrestleMania weekend. He had a match against Matt Cardona, and they had to call him something else that was not Blue Cane. And the whole match was built around the time that Kane pushed him off the stage in the wheelchair as Zack Ryder and killed his career in the WWE.
And you know what? I wouldn't want to be associated with Kane these days anyway, for other reasons. So anyway, I'm just saying we don't have to go there. But hey, when I can, I take an opportunity. So I just took one. So Bryan Danielson defeating Shingo Takagi by submission in a men's Owen Hart Cup tournament first round match. Chris, I thought this match was very good. And Shingo, it always delivers. If Shingo's worked a bad match, I guess it's possible. I don't know that I've seen it. So I thoroughly enjoyed this one. What was your take on this one?
Probably my favorite match of the night, honestly. I mean, outside of the Swerve Ospreay match, this was definitely I'd have to watch them back to back again to pick one for sure. But with the rest of the stuff on the card, this was way up there. It was a very, very good match. I guess the question is this Owen Hart tournament? With Hangman and Bryan Danielson there, it kind of pinpoints that's your finale.
Could be. Yeah, because we've got Jay White versus Hangman Adam Page, and the winner will face Bryan Danielson. So, yeah. I enjoyed this. I thought it was excellent. No complaints here at all. Shingo's awesome. And every time Danielson works, Chris, it's like he's checking off another great match off his card. So, yeah, I enjoyed it. Kudos to Shingo for trying to get heat with the crowd. Because again, I say, someone has to be the heel. And if I'm wrong, why does Shingo do this to the crowd? Because Shingo knows Danielson's your boy. I'm not. I got to get some heat. Cheer your boy. Hello. Call me crazy.
Yeah, the Bryan Danielson Hangman thing just points, especially with Swerve retaining here in the winner of the Owen Hart tournament getting a title shot. I would assume it kind of sets that tournament, especially with Hangman just randomly coming back on Dynamite. Sets that up too pretty for that not to be the finale of this tournament.
Yeah, that's fair. That makes a lot of sense, actually. I want to get to this next match because this is the one I have a few issues with. Timeless Tony Storm defeating Mina Shirakawa to retain the AEW Women's World Championship. First off, what did you think about Britt Baker coming out at the end? And then what do you think about this match?
I was not a big fan of this match. And I'm excited for Britt Baker to be back. I don't know how she fits into what they're trying to do with Tony Storm and Mina and Mariah May, but I assumed Britt Baker coming back would have been at the behest of like a Mercedes Moné to set that up, but they went a different direction. which maybe they had to because Mercedes Moné is not necessarily getting not as popular as they thought she was going to be as a heel or a baby face, really.
I love the fact that she just keeps smiling. Doesn't matter what the crowd does. She is, and that, Chris, in my opinion, in the long run is going to work for her just fine. That she appears to be not bulletproof, but she's not taking into regard what they're saying. She just keeps her smile. She keeps her swagger. I think that's awesome because if she ever lets on like they're shattering her, shaking her at all, then it never let up. But again, I say, as I said last week, her work since she left the other company is good. And when she was in the other company, well, she's not the best wrestler here in the females. Whatever. If anyone disputes her talent now, I don't know what you're talking about. Because I think she's just gotten that much better. I think her and Britt together are going to be really good, actually.
You're talking about Toni Storm or Mercedes?
Mercedes, yeah.
Yeah. So, with Mercedes, that's kind of what I've said on a couple of your shows is the best thing for her. They should have brought her in when she was ready to wrestle because I don't think that she has ever been that great of a promo. Whereas her in-ring work kind of stands alone. And I think that, if she wasn't number one, she was at least number two to like Charlotte Flair. Right. So that's not, you're talking about someone, both people who will go down as legends in the field of women's wrestling for what they were able to accomplish. And have been compared to like a Flair Steamboat as far as those matches, right? As far as their chemistry in the ring. So now that being said, Mercedes Moné did wrestle a bunch of great female stardom talent on this comeback that she has had. So I'm kind of with you on that. Maybe just don't have her talk as much and just have her go on like a winning streak for a while, and then you can set up wherever you want to go with that, whether it's Toni Storm or Britt Baker. I just thought Britt Baker was the one that made the most sense with CEO and coming in as like I'm the biggest free agent signing you guys have had in a while. It just seemed like that would be the thing that brought Britt Baker back, but they didn't go that route, and maybe for a good reason because, like I said, the reaction to Mercedes Moné has not necessarily been what they were planning on or wanting.
That's like, to me, that match is more intriguing than Deonna Purrazzo versus Mercedes because they've got like the same gimmick. You know what I mean? Like when she came out and interrupted Britt completely there was no smile on her face at all, like deadpan. And Mercedes is doing the thing and the dance, and she's smiling with her glasses and her colorful stuff. And Britt is not having it. And the compare and contrast there was effing great. I'm so here for this person is not like this person at all, and now they're going to wrestle. To me, that's much more interesting. Like than a yin and yang. Well, he's one side of the coin. Shut up. I like the idea of they're two completely different people, and they're going to butt heads. I think that'll be fun.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, I agree. I think we can move on.
Well, here's my take on this match because I don't know if I gave it yet. In my opinion, Toni gave Shirakawa way too much. I was surprised at how much she gave her, and 2/3 of the way in, I looked at my friend and said, "When's the last time Toni got any offense in?" And we're like, "Yeah, I don't know." So then we kept paying attention. Toni would fire up for 20 seconds and boom, she got cut off. And I'm like, we want Shirakawa to look good. That's fine. However, in my opinion, there's your champ. And dude, to me, it almost looked like, well, if she hadn't hit that finish in the end, she wasn't going to beat this girl. Like, I don't know. To me, put it to you this way, the Mercedes match, in my opinion, was paced much better. And I did not come away from that feeling like Stephanie Vacour was freaking great in that match, by the way. I mean, they worked very well together, but I don't know if I believed Vacour has her number. It's almost over. But man, Shirakawa just kept taking it to Toni. And I'm like, she going to pin her? I mean, I don't think so, but man, this is surprising. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I guess the idea is because they're continuing down the road of the storyline that they wanted to try to make Mina look strong.
Yeah.
But we kind of talked about this last week. If you want to make someone look strong, just they could have just won. That's that's the real way to do that. I hate when sometimes people book things way too convoluted when it comes to a match, because at the end people are just going to remember who won anyways.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like when you go back and look at this on Cage Match, it'll have a star rating and who won or lost.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, I'm assuming that they wanted to make her look strong because Toni Storm's eventually going to have the following out with Mariah May, and then that's going to be her overcoming the odds. So they don't want her to just beat her to death. The other thing I don't know for sure is if that was an easier match for Toni Storm to let her have that offense instead of like a language barrier type thing for the speed of match it was. That's always a possibility as well, because I don't know that they may have wrestled each other before, but I don't know for sure that they've ever wrestled each other.
Well, if they haven't, you couldn't tell, because I liked the match. I thought it was good, but again, I was just a little surprised how much she got. Since we're already talking about Mercedes, let's talk about Mercedes and Vancouver. How do you compare the two matches? Which one do you think was better? Or do you have a favorite?
I thought the Mercedes Moné match was a lot better, personally. But yeah, if I had to pick between those two, that would be the match I would pick.
Did it feel more balanced to you, or am I just crazy? Because to me, it felt much more balanced.
Well, like I said, if the idea was to get Mina to look strong, I actually think that Stephanie came out looking stronger in a loss than Mina did, right? So I don't know. I think the styles clicked a little better for me as well. That's the other thing.
Yeah, Vancouver is. I don't know if she's got airtight with AAA or if she even cares about working in the States full time, but man, it'd be hard for me not to sign her. Like, wow. Yeah. I thought she was very good. And language barrier aside, I mean, I feel like, and I not to overblow it or anything, but in my opinion, if she was in, she's one of the pillars of the women's division. I really think a lot of her. I think she crushed it with Mercedes, man. So I enjoyed that match for sure. So the ladies definitely got a great platform here, kids, is what we're trying to say. Before we wrap this up on the rest of this card here, folks, be sure you smash the like button if you haven't done so yet. I appreciate it. We're going to get to your comments here shortly. I'm trying to throw them up as we go. Let's move on, Chris. Zack Sabre Jr. defeating Orange Cassidy. In my head, the right guy won here. What'd you think about the match?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the right guy won. I thought it was a very good match. I don't know that it was as good as their first match, but it was a really, really good match. And I kind of, on my prediction, was based, well, Zack lost the last one, so he needs to win this one. And that's the route they went. So maybe we'll get one more because the matches are really, really good. But most Zack Sabre Jr. matches are really good.
God, he's so good. He's yeah, I mean, I don't know how often he's considered to be one of the best in the game, but I think he should be up there. I mean, you've got the crowd, especially an AEW crowd, when you can make those guys ooh and ah at a getting tied up in a pretzel on the mat. Like, I mean, Zack didn't have to do a whole lot to get that reaction because, if you watch him in New Japan, you're used to that. But if you don't watch him all the time and he comes to States and does that, you're going to be like, oh my God, I've never seen that before. Did you see that reversal? Like, he's so good at that, man. It's crazy good, dude.
It's also like the thing that's so surprising about Orange Cassidy is his ability to kind of work with anyone and have a good match. And when he's put into a situation with someone that's really, really good, he kind of turns it up to 11 a bit. And these tend to be some of his best matches. So shout out to him too. Just saying.
Oh yeah,
he was the other guy in this match and was really, really good. They this is the second match. I think both were Forbidden Door matches, so I'm assuming we'll get one more. And if you're Tanahashi watching this and you're about to go into G1, maybe circle Zack Sabre Jr. You guys got to do something over there. Yeah,
dude. Why aren't you? He's still left. He's one of the guys that stuck around. I mean, you're crazy if you don't do anything with him. I mean, look, and all due respect to Orange, I think he's so much better than what people give him credit for. I don't know if you can wreck him, Chris. I guess if you beat him 20 matches in a row, and I still don't think the crowd would turn on him. I think that I'm going to make a weird comparison with him and Jeff Hardy. Like, Jeff can basically do anything. That crowd's going to love him. I don't mean legal stuff, right? But like Orange, right? But like Orange is, I don't know if they could wreck the guy. I guess anything's possible, man. But it just feels like there's more of a connection between him and that crowd than maybe anybody else. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how it feels. What do you think?
He also has the back card of I've never been heel since day one here in AEW. So even if you threw him on a 30-loss streak, he could always turn heel. That's what I thought they were going to do with him with the Don Callis family, honestly. I was like, that might actually work for me, because I would be interested to see what that looks like.
And I think it would work. Just don't have him cut promos anymore. Don't have him talk. Just
you put him with Don Callis talks, and he just wears an all black denim outfit.
Real men wear black, kids. I'm just saying. It's the only thing in my closet. That's all I got for you. Let's see. Maria is Maria, you are an active fan today. Everybody be more like Maria. She says Orange Cassidy and Willow can never turn. Never say never, Maria. I think Willow could be a despicable heel if she wanted to. She looks lovable, but I think she could have a mean streak. Well, you know what? They teased it, Chris, with the sky blue stuff, and it looked weird. And I don't know if it was working, but that's not to say that she couldn't pull it off under different circumstances.
I like to say Orange Cassidy, though. I think anyone can be turned heel given the right circumstances, but to say Orange Cassidy could never be turned heel, that's Hulk Hogan has proven that to not be true.
Good point. Yeah.
Eventually, people will get bored of this. It will happen. It will happen eventually.
Yeah. Chad, too bad in the house, kids. Jeffrey seconded Maria's emotion when he said, Orange is a forever face. You could never turn him heel. Here's what I'll say. And I'm not suggesting Ricky should have turned heel. But go back in that feud with Flair, and I get it. Comparing anybody to Flair in his prime was hard in terms of crowd reaction. Chris, they were booing Ricky. They were booing his wife, and they were even booing that baby. And I'm like, you're booing a child. What are you doing? But like, they clearly wanted Flair to win that title that night. And when you go back and watch Steamboat pin him for the belt, there's two women in the crowd. I'll never forget this. One of them looked at the other and went, what? And I'm like, wow. Because like Steamboat pinning Flair should have been every man on his feet. But yeah, so I'm not saying he should have turned heel, Chris, but I'm with you. I think anybody can turn at any time. Whether or not it's a good idea, I don't know. But I think, I think it could happen.
I mean, Orange Cassidy, he's never won the heavyweight title in AEW. That in itself, in a lot of ways, could be justification, especially if you lose a bunch of matches, to look at someone like Don Callis and say, hey, get me to the promised land. You know what I mean? Like, that's not... Yeah. His entire character is he doesn't care about anything, but he has, that can change when the landscape changes a little bit. You start seeing other wrestlers surpass you. That in itself can be enough to maybe make him start caring. Him starting to care about something would actually be the heel turn, right? That's what I'm getting at.
That's a good way to look at it. Look, kids, I live and die by the mantra, never say never. I will say to you, anyone that's like the thing about Becky will never leave WWE. Is that right? I just don't want to hear it. I'm not saying she's leaving. I hate this never say never stuff, or this it'll never happen stuff. Because like there again, Chris, we saw Eric Bischoff on Monday Night Raw. We saw Bret Hart shake Shawn Michaels' hand on live TV. There's so many. We saw Hulk Hogan turn heel. There's so many things. This will never happen. Stop. I appreciate everyone's opinion here watching. I love you guys, and I respect your opinion. But I can't say never on anything, Chris. I just can't. We've seen too much wacky stuff.
Yeah, I would say, out of people that would be the hardest to turn heel, Darby Allin would probably be the hardest to turn heel in that company.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good point. Excellent point. Yeah. How do you? Like, I guess there's a way, but man. I mean, it's a challenge. Most of these guys love challenges.
He could have cracked Sting with a baseball bat. That would have done it. But I guess you could bring Sting back for a night.
I'm not going to say who said it because I'm sure more than one person said it. But after Sting's retirement match, I saw people saying that Darby should have turned on him. And I'm like, you're not watching WWE. That's not what we do here in this company. That's not. Sting had a great ride. He finished on top because we treat legends with respect whenever possible. Like this, Chris, that's a very WWE thing to do, is in the last moment, Darby cracks him over the head with the bat, kills him, and that's how Sting walks out, like, or is carried out or whatever. I don't know.
You could have done it when they won the tag titles. He could have done it right after they won the tag titles and then set that up as Sting's last match and then had Sting just win the match.
There you go.
That's, I mean, if you absolutely wanted to do it, that would have been a good way.
There you go. Oh, Maria, talking about Never Say Never. Punk returned to WWE. We all said, a lot of people said, never gonna happen. Great example. See there, Maria.
To be fair, to be fair, I didn't think he was going to go somewhere and make him hate them more than WWE. That was not on the card, the bingo card of Punk returning.
Fired you.
He's a little petty.
Fired you on your wedding day via FedEx on your wedding day. That is a calculated move on your wedding day to fire you. You can determine when that later gets to the guy's mailbox, and you chose his wedding. Come on. And that's the company he went back to. Freaking crazy. Whatever.
That's how mad the other company made him. That's what I'm saying. It's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend is exactly what happened in both situations of him. One going to AEW and two going back to WWE.
No doubt about it. Crazy times. Samoa Joe, Hook, and Katsuyori Shibata defeated the Learning Tree. Jericho, Big Bill, and Jeff Cobb. We kind of figured maybe Joe and Cobb would bring us some highlights, and they sure did, because this was a fun match for what it was. The crowd chanting to Jericho, what was it, just retire or please retire? I mean, and then Jericho had to feed into it, talking about he's from Long Island. I don't know, man. I said on last episode, I thought maybe this stuff was starting to get over with Chris. I don't know if I'm right or not. But, yeah. What do you think about this one?
It's still the same since the last few times we've talked about it. I think Jericho needs a vacation. Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
It does.
I love Jericho. This is not working for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's odd. All good things come to an end. I wonder what the end will be. You ever wonder about that? Is it just going to fizzle away? Not with Chris. I think Chris has an ending in mind, but I don't know what that ending is going to be.
I mean, hopefully it'll be similar to what Sting's last match was, right? That's what you could hope for. I mean, the assumption would be Jericho would always return to WWE for one last match, but the 10-year contract kind of says otherwise. I'm assuming it's going to end right there in AEW.
Yeah.
Who would you choose for him to go out with? I don't know, man. You almost I guess his biggest feuds were with Moxley, right?
Mm-hmm. I guess so. Yeah. I mean, I'd be interested to see Jericho versus Christian. I think that would be highly entertaining. Don't know who would play face. I guess Chris would be face in that one. But
if they're both healthy, I mean, Jericho versus Kenny, the two people that kind of started AEW as single superstars, you could do that.
Yeah. That
would be, and Kenny would be able to get a good last match out of Jericho. But I don't think Jericho's going anywhere anytime soon. I'm just saying take like 2 or 3 months off, dude. I think coming back, let the rest of the landscape play itself out and then figure out where to fit Jericho back in. Just refresh itself a little bit. I have mad respect for him because he has consistently been there. Funny enough, for when you start talking about age and what they're doing, Jericho has been on almost every one of these pay-per-views since day one. So work ethic is not a question for Jericho.
Fair. That's fair. Robbie, save your question till the open floor, my friend. We're going to get through this card first. Let's see. The ladder match. Jack Perry defeats Konosuke Takeshita, Mark Briscoe, Dante Martin, Leo Rush, and El Phantasmo. As far as we know, Dante's healthy. That's a win. As far as we know, everybody's okay. That's a good thing. I thought Phantasmo, again, Chris, if you don't know anything about Phantasmo, you got a little lesson in this match. He's entertaining. He's different. He's unique, right? I thoroughly enjoyed this match. I thought everything was there. I didn't see any issues. I'm glad everybody's okay. Anytime you leave your feet on those ladders, I hold my breath for you. What'd you think about this ladder match? And did the right guy win this one?
Who ended up winning? Jack Perry ended up winning this match? I can't even remember who won the match.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I remember other stuff about the match. I remember Mark Briscoe and Tashida being the only two people I thought were trying to bring any kind of psychology into the match whatsoever.
Yeah.
From the start of the bell to the end. That being said, there was lots of really cool spots. Leo Rush looked like he was running 8 bazillion miles an hour. I had completely forgot who won the match.
Wow. Well, I mean, for you that's one opinion, but I guarantee you're not the only guy that felt that. And you are what I would deem to be, no disrespect to anyone, an educated wrestling fan. You know what I mean? Like you've been a fan long enough and have watched enough companies and seen enough action up close in real life that you can, and if you feel that way, I'll bet other people feel that way too, man.
Well, I mean, like a prime example is Briscoe going for the froggy bow, or later in the match, Tashida, when he puts this guy through the table, the look of intent of I'm about to murder this man so I can climb the ladder, kind of giving it time to breathe, versus like a lot of, I'm just kind of over ladder matches in general. I think it's been done to death.
Yeah, that's fair
to some extent. And that's not just this company. That is TNA, in AEW, WWE, name it. We're about to go into a ladder match, a show based around ladder matches this weekend. Right? Is it Money in the Bank this weekend?
It's tomorrow, right? I think. Yeah. So, it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, not my favorite ladder match, but I did enjoy it. In terms of the psychology, I get your point. I just think that a lot of times, depending on what the goal is and who's you're putting over, I'm not going to say psychology is impossible, but I do think it's quite a bit harder. And like we talked about how it's tough in trios matches to have any of that. I think this is so chaotic that I think these guys, the natural fallback is, hey, let's work out some spots. And I've got 4 things I want to do. Like if we all have 4 big spots in mind for ourselves, and then boom, we go out and do it. We'll just pick the moments to run those spots. But that's kind of the downfall of it. Do you think Leo Rush ends up in AEW full time at some point if the circumstances were to be right for both sides? What do you think about that?
I mean, didn't they fire him because he stood up for a female wrestler on Twitter that was working there that got fired or something? Wasn't that like his exit? He was already in AEW at one point. Is what I'm getting at.
How come I don't remember that? Do I not remember that?
Yeah, I mean, he basically added Tony, like apologized to my girl. I can't remember who it was that got released now. Was it Big Swole? I think it was Big Swole. And then shortly thereafter, he was released from the company or did not come back.
2021, 2022. I have completely forgotten about this one.
So, I mean, if they've squashed that, then sure. I will say Leo Rush tends to not stick around places very long.
Yeah,
in general. Sure. He seems to have, and I don't know the guy personally, but just even in CZW, he had issues there. And if you're having issues in CZW and then NXT and then WWE and AEW, eventually you kind of run out of places to go as far as getting hired on a contract like Tony Khan likes to sign, which is like a 3-year deal.
Yeah. And, he was it 2 years ago, he was in the Best of the Super Juniors or I forget what, I think that's what he was. Man, he had a great run. He had a really good run in Japan, dude. It was excellent. Some of his best work. But like, you're right. He's one of those guys that just, at some point, it's probably not the company. X number of companies later, it may be you that's the problem. You know what I mean?
There's absolutely nothing wrong with just doing the Matt Cardona thing either. Just working all the biggest places you can go work. Like go work GCW, do some stuff in AAA, do some stuff in Japan, come back to AEW, do like a paid. Like what I'm saying is, if I was Tony Khan, I'm not signing this guy to like a $200,000 3-year deal or something.
Yeah, just like you said, Leo, take the best gigs you can. And, why wouldn't you? And I don't know his situation either, but like, if you're in a position you can do that and travel and be okay, then do it. Yeah, I'm okay with that too. I think, Chris, for some fans, it's all or nothing for a company, but like the Cardona example is a really, really good example. So I'm good with that.
Let's see. You're seeing that with like Ziggler right now. I'm spotting his last name. I mean, there's a lot of guys going more towards that. Like, yes, they are on TNA television, but they have an open contract where they can go work dates in other places, and AEW allows that. The problem is like with Leo, like they already have to, like, where's Sammy Guevara, for instance, right? Like when you already have people that you're kind of unsteady with, bringing Leo Rush back in might not necessarily be the best contract idea.
I think Guevara's hanging out with the Motor City Machine Guys. I think they're all huddled up together and they're all hanging out.
They're all in Bulgaria with Rusev.
They're in parts unknown. That's where they are. We need to go check parts unknown, because I think that's where they are. We got 2 matches left, kids. These are both the title matches, Chris. Which one do you prefer? Mox and Naito for IWGP Championship, or Ospreay and Strickland for the AEW World Title?
Swerve and Ospreay for the AEW World Title. And the reason being is Naito just did not want to do anything. Which I'm assuming whatever ideas Moxley pitched him, he's like, no, we're not doing that. Because that's what it felt like watching the match.
Yeah, it was. I didn't see anything great in that match, but I didn't necessarily see anything offensive either. I thought it was a good match. I did find it interesting. It wasn't interesting that Mox came out in full New Japan gear as he would in Japan. I thought that was actually very cool. He's repping the company he's the champion of. I'm good with that. I found it interesting that he's using his Japanese music, which again is fine, but that crowd legit didn't realize what was going on, which plays into your theory of a month ago when you said not everybody's watching all the wrestling, even in that company. I think you're right. I think I disagree with you at that point, but I think that reaction when the crowd's like, they should have been roaring for John, and they weren't. And I'm like, you can't tell me it's just because of the song. They didn't know that Death Rider song. Like, that was surprising to me.
New Japan's in a down period. Like like AEW signed most of their big stars.
Yeah,
this is what comes with that. I mean, this would be the equivalent of like if Moxley went back to ECW or something, like back in the day. You know what I mean? Like it's exactly what I said. Even though this is a smaller audience and they do care more about wrestling for like the art of wrestling, for lack of a better term, it doesn't mean that they're watching New Japan pay-per-views at 4 a.m. or keeping up with every New Japan pay-per-view.
Yeah, that's fair. I did find it interesting because John's been using that Death Rider song since he left WWE. So that's crazy.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just read what happened on New Japan shows and don't actually go watch New Japan shows.
That's fair. And it is another streaming service to pay for, kids. I totally understand. But
it's one that's worth paying for if you can get over how annoying it is to use.
Yeah, it's I will say it's better now than it was, because the previous version was pretty bad. But this one's got its quirks as well. But I will say I love the resume playing didn't always work for me before, and it works for me quite a bit now, which I thoroughly appreciate.
Yeah, you used to have to just pause it and leave it paused like you would like an old Nintendo game that didn't have a save. Just leave that console running.
Maria, you are quickly becoming one of my favorite viewers of this show. But I'm going to disagree with you again. And you think I'm setting you up, but I'm not. She said, I can see New Japan shutting down 2 years. I completely disagree with you again. I'm not trying to make a habit of it. They said the same thing before they got Tanahashi. And Chris, I'm sure you know this. I'm sure you do. But like that company was in serious financial trouble until Hiroshi Tanahashi had the paddles, warmed them up, shocked that sucker back to life. Dude, they couldn't fill up a building. Nobody cared. Like nobody cared. And then Tanahashi came in, and it's like the buzz started, and people could not get enough of this guy to the point of, you know, their biggest successes through the years that led to Okada is because Tanahashi brought people back to the buildings. So I'm not going to say it will happen like that again, but Chris, I don't know if anybody expected Tana to come back like that and make that change. So I can't count this company out, man. I just can't.
Yeah, I mean, they're owned by like a pretty large manufacturing / toy company. So they have some good backing there. I mean, they're in a downspout. They almost run into a problem more like TNA, where yes, it can live forever, but at what quality? That would be more of my concern. So if they just start losing money, like, you know, maybe it'll still exist, but to what extent does it still exist? I mean, like I said, the biggest thing is that all of the top level talent that they built for the past 5 to 6 years, especially your European or your Gaijin talent, is gone. And Okada being the ace after Tanahashi, he's gone. Omega's gone. You know what I mean? They're in a they have been completely pillaged to some extent. And the endeavors that they've put forward with like New Japan Strong in the United States haven't necessarily worked in the way that they were hoping. But I mean, this G1 is probably going to be selling out Tokyo Dome and Osaka, and that's still where their bread is buttered, is being able to get people into the buildings. And those events still mean a lot. They're still able to get people to come in for those events. The biggest thing that they need to do is find next up for the title. Who is their next Okada? Who is their next Tanahashi? They really put a lot of eggs in the basket of Kota Ibushi being that guy prior to him getting hurt and having all the issues he had with New Japan, and then losing a lot of talent. They haven't found that next guy yet, but as soon as they do, they'll know how to book him. He'll probably hold the belt for like 700, 800 days like Okada. It'll all fall into place, because the one thing you can say about New Japan is they're pretty good at keeping their booking consistent and having good quality matches that, you know, make sense over time. And I'll be really stoked to watch the G1, even though I think it is kind of a down, like I said, it's kind of a down year for New Japan in general.
Jeffrey says if NJPW got a TV contract to show updated shows and not show matches from 6 months ago to a year ago, can be doing better. Jeff, I suspect that has to do with TV rights and streaming rights between Japanese television and their streamer, and everybody trying to get their 50 cent off of it or whatever. Like, I suspect that's why. But look, also to that point, Chris, that they've made fans in this country because of that show who maybe had never heard of these guys before. And so the thought is maybe if they see this show, they'll go find the streamer and they'll subscribe.
Well, the idea would have been that to build New Japan Strong up enough to have a weekly show.
Right. Yeah.
So that would be the general idea, to have an Americanized base to have that show. Before New Japan goes out of it being like absolved by TKO and having like New Japan WWE or something before they go out of business, they still have television, a pretty decent television deal in Japan, if I'm not mistaken. So as far as like weekly shows and stuff like that, they're still doing that, just not here in the States. That's a lot of money too. You have to have someone dedicate to doing that, putting on a weekly show, and then you're having to pay people to do commentary on it and put it in a package for the American audience, the normal American audience, your average American audience, to try to get something out of it. And right now I think they're working with Access, right? And they have a hard time making people care about TNA. So
that's fair. Bushiroad is still the majority owner, 85%. TV Asai is 10% minority owner and Amuse is 5%. They've got ownership, but it's a smaller stake. So
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah.
yeah, but still, like they in 2019 they're 5.4 billion, but that's yen. So that's not 5.4 billion in this country for sure. But yeah,
I mean, you've already saw like they're okay with they're letting everything burn away. Like they're letting talent go because they don't want to spend the money to do that because they know they can cut budget to where it needs to be for the company to still be profitable and for them to still continue. And I think that's kind of where they're at. But like you said, you just got to find the next Tanahashi or the next Okada, or wait until one of these guys eventually spin out of AEW. Who want to return, maybe AJ White, for instance, and bring him back, and then there's your star again. Because this will eventually start to go both ways for WWE and AEW. Like, hey, we signed all this talent. Stuff doesn't always work out. Grass is not always greener on the other side, and
Sure.
you'll see that start to shift, right?
And I have mad respect for the executives of this company with the knowledge of during COVID, while the other guys over here WWE were firing and laying off and in droves. You know, New Japan's executives, Chris, took a pay cut so they didn't have to fire any wrestlers. I got mad respect for that. And, you know, their empty arena matches, you can argue all day long about that, but like, you know, their standards of cleaning and sanitation, they were doing the best they could. And again, they didn't let any talent go. So they got my respect for years for that stuff, man. So
and their fans are just way different than fans here. Like the first G1 they had post COVID, where fans were allowed in the building. They were allowed in the building, but they were not allowed to cheer during these matches. But they still showed up, like sold out buildings and stuff. So like New Japan ain't going anywhere. I don't think. You know, like I said, obviously the quality of the show may be more hindered than the actual product itself going away. And they're announcing stuff with WWE. Like, didn't they just do something at Dominion with WWE? Wasn't that something they just recently did?
Gosh, that's a good question. I'm not sure about that.
I mean, see if I can find that again.
Yeah,
I can't find that article right now, but like that's always been the other thing is that Triple H has for a long time has wanted to work with New Japan. And we kind of talked about this with you're starting to see people from TNA come in. I think they realize that that's going to be a little bit of the way of the future. And it also will get them out of some legalities based around independent contractor status where they can say, no, but my wrestler, I let them go wrestle over there because like a WWE independent contractor is not a WWE independent contractor. That's also part of the reason AEW does it the way that they do. It's not necessarily to be nice. It's that eventually you'll see what happened in the UFC and someone's going to get sued because they're not truly independent contractors. Like what was that a $300 million settlement that happened in that UFC case for a similar thing?
Yeah. Crazy. By the way, I thoroughly enjoyed Swerve and Ospreay. I thought they crushed it. And I've always liked Swerve, and you know, a lot of criticism on his title run, and I get it to an extent. But when he knelt down and went forehead to forehead with Will and kind of patted him on the head and then stood up. And again, I watch his stuff all the time, but I mentally got like, that's your champion. Something about that moment in time clicked with me personally. I'm like, that's your champion. That is a guy who has confidence and swagger and like without saying a word or cutting a promo or smirking or anything, just the way when he stood back up, dude, for me, it clicked. Like, that's the world champion. Like, I'm so glad they let him have that win. I want to see this guy hold the belt as long as possible. I think he needs to beat other big, important names. I'd love to see this thing continue, dude, honestly.
Yeah, I'm glad he got the win as well. I didn't think they were going to go that route. I really didn't, because it just all signs pointed towards MJF versus Will Ospreay. But now you have the speed bump with the Daniel Garcia versus MJF thing. We'll see if this hurts them in the long run. And then also where Will Ospreay is going to fall in all of this. Did they set him up for anything on Wednesday? I don't remember them. Unless they just do a rubber match.
Well, he politely told Don he wanted out of the family, and Don said okay, and you're like, come on, he's not out of the family. This ain't over. This ain't over yet. You kidding me? They're not just gonna land him all. Come on. So we know that's coming back around. I don't know to what extent, but
that might have meant more if he didn't beat everyone in the family leading up to that moment.
Good point. Yeah. Good point. But 4-on-1 beat down and 3-on-1 beat, that's a big deal. So, I don't know. Like, someone asked a question earlier if we thought that he was negatively affected. I do not think Ospreay was impacted at all by that loss. I don't think he lost a step, Chris, at all coming out of that.
I think it was kind of a breath of fresh air for people because I don't think they wanted Swerve to lose, but it seems like everyone I talked to didn't necessarily want Swerve to lose, and they thought that the title run has kind of been stifled creatively. Mm-hmm. And like you said, that's the first big moment with him having the belt that felt like a big moment. So from that standpoint, I'm glad that, he won and kept on. I don't think it's going to hurt Will Ospreay that much either. If anything, I think that a lot of fans probably just breathed, took a breath of fresh air, and they're like, okay, what's next? Right now, what will hurt Will is if whoever he's going against next, if that story sucks. So, if it is just going back through the Callis family again, that's not necessarily the most exciting thing in the entire world. And it also doesn't necessarily help MJF going against Daniel Garcia, like we kind of already talked about earlier, which is why I thought that it wasn't going to happen.
Be interesting to see. I'm here for it. I love the guy. I think he's killing it. So we'll see what happens next. Kids, the floor is wide open. Whatever you got. Ray All Day's not watching. I bet Ray All Day's on vacation with his family. So hope he's having a good time. Everybody else on vacation, Chris. You and me were here doing this. So I love doing this. I don't know about anybody else, but I enjoy it. So whatever you guys have, it can be wrestling related, not wrestling related. We'll give this a few minutes. Then we're going to split and call today. I got another show coming in about 30 minutes. I'm going to record another episode of the 6M podcast.
We had one question earlier from Robbie. I don't know if you want to throw that back.
That's right. Let me see if there it is. Robbie, I got you. Speaking of heels and wild storylines, I just saw UWF creators Herb Abrams' Dark Side of the Ring talking about the mountains of cocaine, the hotel room, hookers, and a failed pay-per-view. This is for both of you. What is the wildest out of the ring story that you have heard about a promoter or wrestler that surprised you about that person? That's a good question. What do you think, Chris?
So mine's really sad. I met Jimmy Snuka and actually had beers with him, and it was a cool experience at a fan con. I did not know the tragic story and slaying of his wife. When I found that out later on, I was like, man, this is wild. And how was this covered up for so long? And how did I not know about this as a super nerdy wrestling fan? Like, I know that kind of started, I think this was 2010 when I met him, and that stuff started really circulating a couple of years later. And I was like, man, I gave this guy a smoke.
Wow.
So it's that. And that is one of the craziest stories just because of how much evidence was there and how a lot of it got pushed under the rug because he was Jimmy Snuka. So that would be the one that I have.
I don't know if this is my biggest of all time, but I'll tell you one because you mentioned personally. I'll mention one personally. First thing that jumped to mind. I won't name the guy, but we brought in a wrestler who goes back to the 80s. I'm trying to keep this vague. And this is going back 20 years ago at this point. But we brought him in with the company I was working with. And I was told about his fee. His fee was $200 and a bag of whatever. And I said, what do you mean a bag of whatever? And they said, that's whatever we can get him. And I said, I'm not being a party to that. And they're like, no. It's like, I'd never put you in that position. It's nothing insanely illegal, but we're going to get him some stuff. And because he was, you can imagine years and years and years of taking bumps, your body is wrecked. And you know, whether it was painkillers or I don't know. I was said, don't tell me. I don't want to know. I didn't think him a villain or a bad person, but I grew up idolizing this guy. And I'm like, this sucks. This really sucks. Cause like he was awesome, by the way, in the locker room. No issues at all. Very friendly, good to work with. But like, I don't know. I was having to, counteract both. Cause again, I grew up watching the guy and I was a big fan. And it was like, this kind of feels weird now. But hey, who am I to judge? So, yeah, that's my really quick one. Chad, too bad, is making me crazy with this. Chad, I'm kidding. You're not making me that crazy. Chris, how do you feel about Kyle O'Reilly as a wrestler? I really like him and wish AEW would give him a push. Define push, though, Chad. Do you mean singles? Because the guy he's been on TV consistently how many weeks in a row now? Like, I don't know, Chris. How would you push Kyle O'Reilly?
Oh, that's I didn't have anything loaded for that. I like Kyle O'Reilly a lot.
Yeah.
I mean it kind of all ties back to the Undisputed Era, right? Like that would be the start of that push. Maybe runs through that group somehow. The other way to do it would be, I don't really know. I don't know what you would do with him because like they've had him have some good matches and he's there and it's fine, but I don't. That's so hard. That's so tough
it's
because
tough.
some of his best stuff is like going against like kind of being the odd man out in group scenarios. So I guess you could do something like that. He like you said, he's been consistently on TV. I don't. Maybe that is the level of his push in AEW.
I got one. Tell me, don't scoff at this. You'll hurt my feelings. Blackpool Combat Club. I think he would fit right in.
He runs through him?
No, stop it. You know what I mean. I think he would fit right in, dude. If they wanted to recruit somebody else, I think it would make perfect sense, honestly.
I mean, do the current members of Blackpool Combat Club fit in with Blackpool Combat Club, I guess would be
I think you and I are split on this. I enjoy Blackpool Combat Club.
I do too,
not.
But they don't. Well, it's not that I don't enjoy the wrestlers individually, but as a group, they just randomly show up to do like trios matches. That's not going to get Kyle O'Reilly over. I wouldn't consider that a push.
When Regal was there, the big point of that stable was we're teaching the next generation. So Kyle wouldn't fit into that. He's not the next generation. Wheeler Yuta fits in. So that's where Daniel Garcia may fit in. Stop the dancing and get a better song. But like, I don't know who else you'd put in that. But anyway, that's just the guy asked a question. I thought it was a good idea. Believe that crap. So Toby says,
I don't think it's a bad idea. That the whole thing would be booking Blackpool Combat Club completely different than they book the Blackpool Combat Club.
You think Kyle's style is that different that it would be? It wouldn't fit that well.
It's more just that group is just there to do trios matches when they need to do.
I see. Match. They just need 6 guys that can do two trios matches. Perfect.
Every match is a Survivor Series match. They just challenge 6 blokes from the back.
Yes. Toby says, I'll be Ray Dean today. AC/DC or Aerosmith, and a Tony Storm threw his shoe at you. Could I watch? That's lovely. If Tony Storm throws a shoe at me, I hope you help me, number one. Toby. Number 2, for me, it's AC/DC. Sorry.
Toby, please catch it on video. Because that means that Tony Storm would have thrown a shoe at me in public.
Yes.
Which would be good. Aerosmith, I love AC/DC, but if I had to, I really like Aerosmith's guitar part, so I'd go with Aerosmith.
Maria says, what percentage of a chance do you see Shane McMahon joining AEW? Never say never. I don't think we're going to see it, but again, I never say never. Chris, what do you think?
0.2%.
Hey, it's not negative 0.2%.
He still owns I think he still owns stock in WWE unless he's recently sold that off. So
that's a good point. That's a good point. Toby's back and says, on a serious note, would you like to see Stephanie Valkyrie in AEW? I say yes. I'm glad people got to see how awesome she is. Toby, you have missed the show. You did come in highly late, Toby. Shame on you. Shame him, everyone. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I think we're both on the same page there. And that's why, like, when we were talking about the match, I said I think that she ended up looking stronger than Mina, even though that match was built more to try to, like, make Mina look strong.
Mm-hmm. Maria says, can you see a talent secretary showing up on a rival wrestling show while negotiating like the way Lex Luger did back in the day? A talent secretary. That's an interesting way to put that. I mean, we've already had some crossovers here, right? Like guys who show up within 2 weeks or a week, one on program and one on the other program. We've already seen it now, haven't we?
Yeah, I think with the major shows being live, it becomes a lot harder, right? Because at that point, when Lex had that jump and you had all these jumps, WWE wasn't live yet. So that was one of the advantage Eric Bischoff had. Then that's how you end up with like people like Rick Rude being on 2 shows. So it could be done, but it would be hard. And actually, I would think it would be the other way, where WWE brings in someone where you have like a taped show from AEW.
Yeah. I was thinking about Pillman's kid. Like in WWE, they're calling him, it's like Bryson, Claxton, Paxton, Fraxton, or some nonsense, the third, or whatever they're calling it. I don't really care. The name change thing just is beyond ridiculous to me, but whatever. Like, because I think he was on AEW, and then like 2 weeks later, he was on NXT or something. I don't remember. Let's see. Chad says, did you see where Charlie Dempsey showed up on TNA? My question is, how do you make this help TNA? I get the fact it's WWE, but so far it's been where the TNA people are on NXT. They don't fare well, but when Dempsey showed up on TNA, he crushed them. You're surprised? I mean, come on, Chad.
I think that's one of those things, like, right? That's also happened with AEW and TNA talent to some extent. But yeah, so I don't, you would want your big stars, like Charlie Dempsey beating someone on TNA is not that big of a deal if the end goal is Jordan Grace is going to win the NXT title or something. Like that would be the payoff for that. Who I think has been booked fairly well in NXT, though I haven't seen the last week of NXT, so I could be wrong on that.
Toby says, better talent, Mariah May or Tiffany Stratton? I personally think Mariah May is a better all-around wrestler. That's me talking.
More upside or better talent currently? I think more upside would be Tiffany Stratton. Better talent currently would be Mariah May. But that being said, Mariah May was in Japan for like years before she got to AEW, where Tiffany Stratton's kind of still green.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good question. Well, kids, I think that's going to do it for us here today. We've been here an hour and 45 minutes. Y'all got to behold the majesty of this here show. I don't know where I was going with that. Chris, before we get out of here, tell everybody out there where they can find you on the internets.
It's at Chris R. Patton on Twitter, Christopher.R.Patton on Facebook and Instagram.
There you go. Well, Chris, thanks much for coming on. Don't go anywhere. I appreciate you very much. Chris, everybody say thank you to Chris, and Chris, we'll see you around real soon, my friend. Thanks much. All right, kids, there you have it. The main event, 338 is in the books. Still a little bit of, you know what? If I ever have the opportunity to actually fix lighting, I don't think I will. You know why? Because I have nothing to talk about. Right now, I got to say, it's not bad, is it? Jimmy's a little digitized. Look at that. He's a little digitized. Kind of looks like he's wearing a mask. For those of you listening to the audio version and not watching the video version, boy, you're missing out because you're not getting any of these references. You have no idea what I'm doing right now. It's your fault. It's on you. I've been telling you forever, go to boinkstudios.com, B-O-I-N-K, boinkstudios.com. You'll find links to this show, Tom Carter Sixon podcast, and Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast, as well as links to all of my co-hosts, including Mr. Patton that you just saw, and to everything that I've done so far. The YouTube link is there. The Discord link is there. boinkstudios.com. Don't waste any more time. visit the site, bookmark, refresh that sucker. I just did some big time updates on there. I think she looks sharp. Go check her out and you'll thank me later. I didn't rehearse any of that. This is what happens when all you do is just podcasts and whatnot. Stuff just kind of rolls off the tip of your tongue, man. I'm not saying it's always great, but I am saying that you have the ability to make it happen. Well, there you go. That's what I got for you, kids. I'm getting out of here. Everybody, enjoy your weekend. I appreciate you very much. We should be back here a week from today, next Friday. Keep your eyes open. We always run promos and teasers and Facebook posts and everywhere else we are, and you'll be able to see them. Again, thanks, kids, for watching. BoinkStudios.com is where you need to go. I appreciate it very much, and we'll see you next time, kids.